What if the real reason money keeps slipping through your fingers has nothing to do with strategy, intelligence, luck, or opportunity, and everything to do with the way your nervous system reacts when you are forced to wait, to focus, to be alone with your thoughts, while the world keeps flashing promises of faster pleasure and easier wins? Sit with that question before you try to outrun it, because most people never do. They treat money like an external object, like something floating in the world that must be captured, chased, hunted, or begged for, never realizing that money behaves more like a shadow than a prize. It stretches when you stand tall, it shrinks when you crouch in fear, and it disappears entirely when you chase it with desperation. You don't earn money first and then become disciplined. You become disciplined, and money has no choice but to follow. That truth is offensive to a culture addicted to shortcuts, offended by patience, and allergic to silence. But offense is often the first sign that a nerve has been touched, and nerves are where real transformation begins. Most people want wealth the way children want fireworks: bright, immediate, loud, impressive, gone by morning. They don't want the furnace that forges steel. They want sparks. They don't want systems. They want spikes. They don't want to change who they are when no one is watching. They want a number to appear on a screen so they can feel superior to their past self for a brief moment before collapsing back into the same habits that created scarcity in the first place. This is why so many people make money and still live like they're broke. This is why lottery winners end up bankrupt. This is why online earning has produced more burnt-out dopamine addicts than financially free humans. The problem was never income. The problem was identity. Money only amplifies what already exists inside you. If you are undisciplined, money will accelerate your chaos. If you are focused, money will deepen your clarity. If you are empty, money will make the emptiness echo louder. The internet did not create opportunity, it exposed character. Digital leverage did not make people rich, it made people visible to themselves. Online earning is the most honest mirror humanity has ever built because it strips away excuses at scale. When your income is directly tied to your ability to focus, to delay gratification, to learn without applause, to execute without motivation, there is nowhere to hide, no boss to blame, no office politics to distract from your own inconsistency, no fixed paycheck to numb you into thinking stability is the same as security. The internet rewards the invisible traits that most people refuse to cultivate because they don't feel productive in the moment: stillness, patience, depth, long-term thinking, emotional neutrality. These don't trend well on social media. They don't feel exciting. They don't give you a rush, but they build empires quietly while everyone else is refreshing their feed, waiting for permission to believe in themselves. You say you want financial freedom, but watch how your body reacts when freedom demands boredom. Watch how your mind rebels when success asks you to repeat the same unsexy action for months without feedback. Watch how quickly you reach for stimulation when progress becomes subtle instead of dramatic. This is where most people fail, not because they lack information, but because they lack emotional authority over themselves. They cannot sit inside the discomfort of delayed reward without numbing it. They cannot tolerate the silence long enough to hear their own thinking. They confuse movement with momentum, noise with progress, urgency with importance, and so they stay busy, broke, and exhausted, calling it ambition while secretly resenting the discipline they know they need but refuse to submit to. Wealth is not a number. It is a nervous system trained to remain calm while others panic. It is the ability to make decisions without needing immediate emotional payoff. It is the power to say no to short-term pleasure in service of long-term autonomy. This is why money flows toward people who seem almost detached from it. They don't flinch when numbers go up or down. They don't inflate their identity with wins or collapse it with losses. They understand that markets move, algorithms shift, platforms rise and decay, but character compounds quietly beneath all of it.
They build systems instead of chasing moments. They invest in skills instead of fantasies. They respect time more than attention, and because of that, time begins to respect them back. Look closely at your own behavior when it comes to earning online. Do you jump from model to model like a gambler chasing the next table, or do you commit long enough to let competence emerge? Do you study deeply, or do you skim until something feels hard and then label it not for you? Do you measure your progress by internal metrics like focus hours, output quality, and consistency, or by external validation like likes, views, and quick cash hits? The internet is full of people teaching money while secretly being enslaved by the need to appear successful. True wealth builders don't perform prosperity. They protect their attention. They choose obscurity over distraction. They understand that the most valuable currency in the digital age is not money, but undisturbed focus over long periods of time. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect made visible. Every time you keep a promise to yourself when no one is watching, you reinforce an internal identity that says, "I am someone who follows through." That identity is magnetic to money because money moves toward reliability. Systems reward predictability. Clients trust consistency. Algorithms favor persistence. Markets respond to competence. None of these care how motivated you feel. They care how often you show up with clarity and restraint. This is why emotional control is the backbone of financial independence. If you cannot control your impulses, you will never control leverage. If you cannot manage your reactions, you will never manage scale. If you cannot sit with discomfort, you will always sell your future for relief. There is a reason ancient philosophies emphasized mastery of the self before mastery of the world. They understood something modern culture has forgotten in its obsession with hacks and shortcuts. Power without discipline is destruction. Wealth without inner order is decay. Freedom without structure collapses into chaos. The people who quietly build lasting wealth understand that money is not the goal. Money is the measurement. The real work happens internally, in the moments where you choose restraint over indulgence, patience over panic, depth over distraction. Online earning simply accelerates the feedback loop. It shows you who you are faster than any traditional career path ever could. You might think you want more money, but what you really want is relief from anxiety, choice over your time, and respect for yourself when you look in the mirror. Money is just the language through which those needs are negotiated in the modern world. But if you try to use money to solve a discipline problem, you will fail. If you try to use income to fix an identity gap, you will feel like an imposter in your own life. Real wealth feels quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg for attention. It sits underneath your decisions like a steady current, allowing you to move deliberately instead of reactively. The dark truth most people avoid is that scarcity is often self-maintained, not consciously, not maliciously, but habitually. It lives in rushed decisions, in emotional spending, in the inability to wait, in the reflex to escape discomfort instead of metabolize it. Every impulse purchase is a confession. Every abandoned project is a message to the self. Every excuse is a vote for the identity that keeps you small. This isn't about shame. Shame weakens. This is about responsibility. Responsibility is power reclaimed. When you realize that your financial reality is not a verdict, but a reflection, everything changes. Reflections can be altered by changing what stands before the mirror. Online wealth creation is not about working harder. It's about working cleaner. Fewer moves executed with more precision. Less noise, more signal. Less consumption, more creation. Less reacting, more designing. The people who win in digital economies don't do more. They do less, better, longer. They understand leverage because they first mastered limitation. They know where to place their energy because they stopped wasting it. They don't chase every trend because they understand that consistency outperforms novelty over time. They don't need to prove anything because their systems speak quietly on their behalf. If this feels uncomfortable, good. Comfort is the drug that keeps potential sedated. The truth is supposed to unsettle you because it is asking you to give up excuses you've grown emotionally attached to. It is asking you to stop romanticizing struggle and start respecting discipline. It is asking you to become someone who deserves the freedom they claim to want. That doesn't happen through affirmation alone. It happens through repetition, through boredom endured, through impulses denied, through days where nothing dramatic happens except the quiet strengthening of self-command. This is where wealth actually begins, not in a bank account, not in a business model, not in a viral post, but in the moment you realize that no one is coming to save you from your own lack of structure. And instead of panicking, instead of blaming the system, instead of numbing yourself with distraction, you feel something rarer and more dangerous: resolve. A calm decision to become precise with your time, your attention, your emotions, and your effort. From that decision, everything else becomes possible, because money has always been loyal to those who can govern
themselves before trying to govern outcomes. You think the hunger is the enemy, but hunger is honest. Hunger is the signal that tells you something inside you wants expansion, autonomy, authorship over your own time and value. What destroys people is not hunger, it's impatience pretending to be hunger. Impatience is the voice that says now or never, fast or failed, consume or collapse. Patience is quieter. Patience doesn't argue, it waits. And in that waiting, it separates those who are meant to touch power from those who only fantasize about it. The modern world trains impatience like a muscle: infinite scroll, one-click purchases, overnight success stories stripped of their years of invisibility. Even the language of online earning is poisoned by urgency. Launch fast, scale fast, grow fast, exit fast. But no one wants to talk about the inner pace required to sustain any of it. No one wants to admit that most people fail, not because they move too slowly, but because they move too fast without internal alignment. They sprint toward outcomes their nervous system cannot hold, and when the pressure arrives, they self-sabotage just to feel familiar again. Money is pressure. Scale is pressure. Visibility is pressure. Freedom is pressure. If you have not trained yourself to remain stable under increasing internal and external load, success will feel like a threat instead of a reward. This is why people unconsciously destroy the very things they claim to want. A sudden spike in income exposes unresolved fear. A growing audience exposes fragile identity. A successful online system exposes how undisciplined your life actually is. Wealth does not create cracks, it reveals them. The disciplined mind understands this early. It doesn't rush to earn more before it can hold more. It doesn't ask, how can I make money faster? It asks, who must I become to make money inevitable? That shift in question changes everything. Because when you focus on becoming instead of grabbing, the tactics arrange themselves naturally. You stop chasing business models and start building capacity. Capacity to focus for long stretches without dopamine. Capacity to learn deeply without immediate application. Capacity to execute the same process even when the novelty has died. Capacity to sit with uncertainty without emotionally flinching. Online income rewards those capacities ruthlessly. Algorithms don't care about your mood. Markets don't care about your story. Customers don't care about your intention. They respond to clarity, consistency, and value delivered over time. And value is not created by excitement. It's created by attention, sustained attention, directed attention, undistracted attention. This is why attention is the real currency of the digital age, and why so few people ever feel rich no matter how much they earn. Their attention is fractured, constantly borrowed by platforms designed to keep them reactive, impulsive, and slightly dissatisfied. To build wealth in this environment requires a kind of quiet rebellion. You have to opt out of the emotional economy while operating inside the financial one. You have to learn how to use tools without letting tools use you. You have to be present in digital systems without becoming psychologically absorbed by them. This is subtle work. It doesn't look heroic. It looks boring. It looks like saying no to things that feel good now so you can say yes to things that matter later. It looks like closing tabs, turning off notifications, doing the same work again. Tomorrow, even though no one clapped today, most people think motivation precedes action. In reality, identity precedes motivation. When you see yourself as someone who finishes what they start, you don't negotiate with yourself every day. When you see yourself as someone who respects their time, you don't casually waste it. When you see yourself as someone who builds long-term systems, you don't panic when results lag. Identity removes friction. And identity is built through evidence, not affirmations. Every disciplined action is a brick. Over time, those bricks become a structure strong enough to hold wealth without collapsing. The paradox of modern success is that information is abundant, but wisdom is rare. Everyone knows what to do. Few know how to be while doing it. The internal posture matters more than the external plan. You can give the same online business blueprint to 100 people and get 100 different outcomes. Some will overthink. Some will under-execute. Some will chase perfection and never launch. Some will launch impulsively and burn out. A few will move steadily, quietly, consistently, improving their process while regulating their emotions. Those few will look lucky later. They won't be. Risk is misunderstood. People think risk is about money. It isn't. Real risk is emotional exposure without self-regulation. It's tying your worth to short-term outcomes. It's letting a bad week convince you that you are bad. It's letting a good week convince you that you are finished growing. The disciplined mind treats wins and losses the same way, as data. Feedback without drama. Signal without story. This emotional neutrality is not coldness, it's maturity. It's the ability to stay in the game long enough for compounding to do what it always does for those who don't quit. Compounding is not just financial. It's psychological. Small acts of restraint compound into self-trust. Small acts of focus compound into clarity. Small acts of consistency compound into skill. Skill compounds into leverage. Leverage compounds into income. That is no longer directly tied to hours. But none of this happens if you keep interrupting the process to chase stimulation. None of this happens if you treat discomfort like an emergency instead of a training ground. There is a quiet moment that arrives for anyone serious about financial independence. A moment where you realize that no external force is holding you back anymore. No boss, no system, no lack of information, just your own impulses, habits, and emotional reflexes. This moment can feel terrifying because it removes the comfort of blame. But it is also the moment where power becomes available. Because what is within your control can be trained. What can be trained can be mastered. And what can be mastered can be leveraged. Wealth, in its truest form, is leverage applied calmly over time. Online systems allow a single mind to reach millions. A single asset to generate income while you sleep, a single skill to outlive platforms and trends. But leverage amplifies who you are. If you are scattered, leverage multiplies chaos. If you are focused, leverage multiplies impact. This is why inner order must precede external scale. Otherwise, success becomes loud, fragile, and short-lived. The disciplined individual does not romanticize hustle. They respect recovery. They understand that burnout is not a badge of honor. It's a sign of poor emotional management. They build rhythms instead of sprints. They design days that protect their best energy instead of exhausting it on trivialities. They are ruthless with distractions because they are gentle with themselves. They know that every impulse indulged today becomes a tax on tomorrow's freedom. There is a reason the most dangerous people in history were not the loudest. They were the most composed. Composure is power because it allows choice. When you are not enslaved by urgency, you can wait for asymmetric opportunities. When you are not driven by fear, you can invest when others panic. When you are not addicted to validation, you can build in silence. Silence is where most wealth is actually created. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of deep work, deep thought, and deep self-command. Online earning paths are not mystical. They are mechanical. Attention converted into value. Value converted into trust. Trust converted into transactions. Transactions converted into capital. Capital reinvested into systems. Systems reduce dependence on time. Time reclaimed becomes freedom. But the metaphysical layer sits beneath the mechanics. Who you are determines how cleanly this conversion happens. If you leak energy through distraction, insecurity, and impulsiveness, the system leaks too. If you are stable, the system stabilizes. The people who succeed long-term learn to detach emotionally from money while remaining deeply responsible with it. They don't chase money for identity. They use money as a tool to express identity. They don't measure themselves by income alone. They measure themselves by how much of their day is spent in alignment with their values. This is why they can walk away from deals that feel wrong, even if they pay well. This is why they can delay gratification without resentment. This is why they can continue when others quit out of boredom. If you are listening to this and feeling resistance, that resistance is not a flaw. It's information. It's showing you where your current identity ends and where a stronger one could begin. Transformation is not comfortable because it requires letting go of familiar patterns. Even when those patterns are painful, the ego would rather stay broke and known than disciplined and unfamiliar. But growth has always demanded a shedding. Old stories, old habits, old emotional reactions, old excuses that once protected you but now imprison you. There will be a point where you must decide whether you want comfort or authority. Comfort feels good now. Authority feels good later. Comfort asks nothing of you except compliance. Authority asks for precision, restraint, and responsibility. But authority gives something comfort never can: self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation upon which all sustainable wealth is built. This is not about becoming ruthless with others. It's about becoming honest with yourself. Honest about how you spend your time. Honest about why you avoid certain tasks. Honest about where you seek stimulation instead
of progress. Honest about the gap between who you say you want to be and what your daily actions reinforce. That honesty can sting, but it also clarifies. And clarity is power. The disciplined path is not glamorous. It is repetitive. It is quiet. It is often lonely. But it is also the only path that leads to freedom that doesn't collapse under its own weight. Because when your wealth is built on self-mastery, it doesn't vanish when conditions change. When your income is built on skill and systems, not hype and impulse, it adapts. When your identity is built on discipline, not outcomes, it remains intact through volatility. This is the difference between people who touch money and people who hold it, between those who taste freedom and those who live inside it. The difference is not intelligence. It is not access. It is not luck. It is the willingness to govern the self when no one is watching, when no one is praising, when the reward is distant and the effort is immediate. And if you can feel that truth settling somewhere, deep, uncomfortable but steady, then you are already closer than you think, because awareness precedes change. And once you see the game clearly, you can no longer pretend you don't know what it asks of you. At some point, if you stay honest long enough, you begin to notice a shift. Not in your bank account yet, not in your lifestyle, but in the way you experience time. The days stop feeling like something that happens to you and start feeling like something you shape. You wake up with less noise in your head, fewer compulsions, fewer fantasies about escape, more clarity about what matters and, more importantly, what does not. This is the first real profit. Most people miss it because they're too busy waiting for external proof. But this internal quiet is the signal that the old scarcity identity is losing its grip. Scarcity is not the absence of money. It's the constant sense that you are behind, late, missing out, running out. It makes every decision emotional. It turns money into a source of fear instead of a tool. It pushes you to grab instead of build, to rush instead of refine, to copy instead of understand. Scarcity lives in the body more than the bank account. You can feel it in shallow breathing, restless attention, compulsive checking, the inability to sit still without stimulation. This is why simply making more money doesn't cure it. If the internal pattern remains, the money will be spent, lost, or self-sabotaged until the familiar feeling returns. The disciplined individual does not try to outrun scarcity by earning faster. They dissolve it by slowing down internally. They retrain their nervous system to tolerate waiting, to tolerate uncertainty, to tolerate being early instead of late. This is uncomfortable at first because impatience has been masquerading as ambition for most of your life. But once you see the difference, you cannot unsee it. Ambition is calm. Impatience is frantic. Ambition builds. Impatience consumes. Modern online earning tempts impatience at every turn. There is always someone claiming to have cracked the code, someone flexing numbers without context, someone selling certainty in a world that is fundamentally uncertain. The undisciplined mind clings to these promises because it wants relief. The disciplined mind observes without attachment. It understands that certainty is expensive, and anyone selling it cheaply is lying. Real builders are comfortable saying, "I don't know yet," while they test, measure, and refine. They respect reality more than fantasy. This respect for reality is what separates delusion from vision. Vision is grounded. It accounts for time, effort, failure, and boredom. Delusion ignores these and calls it belief. Belief without discipline is just hope dressed up as confidence. Discipline without belief is empty labor. Wealth emerges when belief and discipline meet and agree to move together, slowly, relentlessly, without drama. Online systems reward those who can think in years while acting daily. This is rare because the human brain is wired to prioritize immediate feedback. But wiring is not destiny. It is a starting point. Through repetition, through conscious restraint, through choosing depth, over dopamine, you can recondition yourself. You can teach your mind that progress does not need to be exciting to be real. You can learn to enjoy the process of refinement, the subtle satisfaction of doing something slightly better today than yesterday. This is where mastery begins to replace motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It spikes and crashes based on emotion, sleep, novelty, and external validation. Mastery is quieter. It shows up regardless. It doesn't need to be convinced. It doesn't negotiate. It simply does what needs to be done because that is who you are now. This identity shift is subtle but profound. The question in your mind changes from, "Do I feel like working?" to, "What does the system require today?" Emotion exits the decision-making process. Freedom enters. The internet gives unprecedented leverage to those who reach this stage. A single well-built asset can outperform years of scattered effort. A single refined skill can travel across industries and platforms. A single focused mind can outproduce 10 distracted ones. But leverage only works when applied by someone who understands restraint. Without restraint, leverage becomes volatility. You chase scale before stability, exposure before competence, speed before structure. And eventually, the system collapses under the weight of your own inconsistency. Those who endure understand something else too. Money responds to clarity. When your thinking is muddy, your offers are muddy. When your attention is fractured, your output is fragmented. When your emotions dictate your actions, your results fluctuate wildly. Clean thinking creates clean execution. Clean execution creates trust. Trust creates income. Income, handled responsibly, creates freedom. This chain is simple, but it is not easy, because each link requires internal order. Delayed gratification is not deprivation. It is investment. When you delay a pleasure, you are not denying yourself. You are redirecting resources toward a future version of you with more choice. Every time you choose to work when it would be easier to escape, you are paying yourself forward. Every time you resist an impulse purchase, you are reinforcing the identity of someone who governs their desires. Over time, these micro-decisions compound into a macro-reality that looks like discipline from the outside, but feels like alignment from the inside. The irony is that as you become less emotionally attached to money, Money becomes easier to earn. When you stop needing it to prove something, you can think more clearly. You can price appropriately. You can negotiate without fear. You can walk away when necessary. Desperation repels opportunity. Detachment attracts it. This is not mystical thinking. It's psychological reality. People sense neediness. Markets punish it. Systems exploit it. Calm confidence, on the other hand, signals competence. There is a stage where you realize that most financial advice is incomplete because it ignores the inner game. Tactics change, platforms evolve, strategies expire, but the person who can learn, adapt, focus, and execute without emotional turbulence will always find a way to earn. This is why true wealth builders invest more in their internal operating system than in any external opportunity. They know that wherever they go, there they are. And if they are disciplined, patient, and clear, value will be created. You begin to see money as a mirror instead of a goal. It reflects how you manage energy, attention, and emotion. It reflects how much responsibility you can carry without cracking. It reflects how well you understand leverage and limitation. This perspective removes a lot of drama. Wins don't inflate you. Losses don't destroy you. Both are simply feedback on your current level of mastery. As this understanding deepens, your relationship with work changes too. Work stops being something you endure for money and becomes something you use to refine yourself. Each project becomes a training ground. Each challenge becomes a test of composure. Each delay becomes an opportunity to practice patience. This doesn't mean you enjoy every moment. It means you stop needing to. You understand that meaning is not always pleasurable, and pleasure is not always meaningful. Many people secretly fear this level of discipline because they equate it with rigidity or loss of freedom. In reality, it creates the only freedom that lasts. The freedom to choose your response. The freedom to say no without guilt. The freedom to move slowly in a fast world. The freedom to build quietly without needing permission or applause. This freedom is not granted. It is earned through restraint. Online earning, at its highest level, is not about being everywhere. It's about being precise. One audience served deeply beats 10 audiences served shallowly. One skill mastered beats 5 skills sampled. One system optimized beats 10 systems started. Precision requires saying no. It requires boredom. It requires enduring the discomfort of not chasing every opportunity. But precision is what turns effort into leverage. You start to understand why so many people feel busy but unfulfilled, active but stagnant. Their energy is scattered across too many directions, driven by fear of missing out rather than commitment to a vision. Vision narrows, fear scatters, wealth follows vision, and vision is not a fantasy of lifestyle. It is a clear, internal image of who you are becoming, how you move, how you decide, how you treat time, how you handle pressure. When that image is clear, actions align naturally. You don't need constant reminders. You don't need external discipline. You simply act in accordance with the person you are choosing to become. This is where the metaphysical and the mechanical intersect. Belief shapes perception. Perception guides behavior. Behavior compounds into results. Results reinforce belief. The loop tightens. Scarcity dissolves not because you force it out, but because it no longer fits who you are. You outgrow it. There will still be challenges. Markets will shift. Platforms will change. Income will fluctuate. But your center remains. You don't panic. You adjust. You observe. You refine. This calm adaptability is the true signal of financial maturity. Not how much you make in a good month, but how you behave in a difficult one. By now, you may notice that this philosophy is demanding. It asks for responsibility instead of excuses, patience instead of stimulation, mastery instead of fantasy. It is not designed for everyone. And that is precisely why it works. Because most people will choose the easier path, The louder promise, the faster thrill. They will call this path too slow, too strict, too boring, and then they will wonder why their lives feel chaotic and constrained. If you continue, truly continue, you begin to sense something else emerging beneath the discipline, a quiet confidence, not arrogance, not bravado, a grounded knowing that you can handle more than you used to, that you don't need to rush, that you don't need to impress, that you can build something real, something durable, something aligned with your values and your nervous system. This is the foundation, not flashy, not viral, but unshakable. And from this foundation, the rest becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Eventually, you stop asking when it will happen. That question fades because it belongs to a version of you that was still bargaining with reality, still hoping time would bend in your favor without you having to become heavier, slower, more deliberate. When that question disappears, something important replaces it. Presence. You are no longer living slightly ahead of yourself, fantasizing about a future that feels more real than today. You are here, working, observing, refining. And paradoxically, this is when momentum becomes undeniable. Most people never experience this phase because they abandon the path right before it stabilizes. They quit when effort still feels disconnected from reward. They mistake the absence of fireworks for the absence of progress. But beneath the surface, something has been reorganizing. Your thinking has become less reactive. Your emotions have become less volatile. Your work has become cleaner. You waste less motion. You choose more carefully. You feel less urgency to explain yourself. This is not stagnation. This is compression, power condensing. In modern finance and online earning, this stage is invisible to outsiders. There are no screenshots, no viral announcements, no dramatic leaps, just steady accumulation of competence and clarity. This is why disciplined builders often look behind until suddenly they are ahead by an unbridgeable distance. While others were busy broadcasting, comparing, and consuming, you were calibrating. And calibration compounds faster than hype. There is a dangerous myth that success requires obsession with money. In reality, obsession distorts judgment. It narrows perspective. It turns every decision into a referendum on self-worth. The people who build enduring wealth are obsessed with process, not payoff. They respect money, but they do not stare at it constantly. They understand that watching water boil does not make it boil faster. They set the conditions, then step back and let time do its work. This is especially true in online systems. Content, products, platforms, investments, they all have latency. You plant something today that may not show results for months. The impatient mind interprets this as failure. The disciplined mind interprets it as incubation. Incubation requires trust, not blind faith, but trust earned through consistent execution and honest measurement. You don't hope it will work. You work the process until the process proves itself. As this trust deepens, your emotional relationship with money changes again. You stop seeing it as fragile. You stop fearing its absence because you understand your ability to create value is intact. This is real security, not savings alone, not diversification alone, but confidence in your capacity to adapt and rebuild. When you know you can generate income under different conditions, money loses its power to intimidate you. It becomes fluid, it moves, it responds. This is why identity-based wealth outlasts circumstance-based wealth. If your identity is built around consumption, status, or external validation, money becomes a performance. If your identity is built around discipline, learning, and value creation, money becomes a byproduct. And byproducts are easier to sustain than performances. Performances exhaust. Byproducts endure. There is a subtle discipline that emerges here. Emotional detachment without emotional numbness. You still care. You still aim high. but you are no longer internally chaotic when outcomes fluctuate. You don't spike with euphoria on wins or spiral on losses. You remain centered. This centeredness is not accidental. It is trained through repeated exposure to uncertainty without escape, through staying present with discomfort instead of medicating it with distraction. Most people are not poor because they lack opportunity. They are poor because they cannot sit with themselves long enough to build anything meaningful. They escape into noise, entertainment, outrage, fantasy. The disciplined mind does the opposite. It removes excess, it simplifies, it creates space. In that space, leverage becomes visible. Opportunities reveal themselves not because they suddenly appear, but because you are finally quiet enough to notice them. Online earning paths reward this clarity brutally. The person who can see signal through noise, who can identify what actually moves the needle, who can ignore 90% of what everyone else is chasing, will dominate quietly. This is not arrogance. It is discernment. Discernment is a skill built through restraint. You cannot develop it while constantly consuming other people's opinions and projections. At this stage, your goals become cleaner. You stop wanting money to be rich and start wanting it to fund specific freedoms: time sovereignty, creative control, geographic flexibility, the ability to say no, the ability to walk away. Money becomes a means of subtraction rather than addition, removing constraints instead of accumulating symbols. This reframing alone eliminates a massive amount of internal conflict. You also begin to see how many people are trapped by lifestyles they cannot sustain. High income, low peace. High visibility, low autonomy. High consumption, low control. These are not success stories. They are cautionary tales dressed up as aspiration. True financial independence is quiet enough that it often looks boring to those addicted to stimulation. But boredom, in this context, is a feature. It means your nervous system is no longer on fire. This is when patience stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like strategy. You wait not because you have no options, but because you have discernment. You don't rush into deals, partnerships, or trends because you understand opportunity cost at a visceral level. Every yes closes doors. Every commitment consumes energy. You protect your capacity fiercely because you know how long it took to build. The metaphysical layer deepens here. You notice that when you are internally ordered, reality responds differently. People treat you with more respect. Negotiations become cleaner. Work flows with less friction. This is not mysticism, it is coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions align, you move through the world with less resistance. Money follows paths of least resistance. So does opportunity. You also stop lying to yourself. This is crucial. You no longer dress avoidance up as strategy or fear up as intuition. You know the difference now. Intuition is calm. Fear is loud. Strategy feels grounded. Avoidance feels busy. This discernment saves years of wasted effort. It keeps you from jumping ship prematurely or staying too long out of pride. Consistency becomes almost non-negotiable at this point. Not obsessive, not punishing, but steady. You understand that missing a day occasionally is human, but missing direction is fatal. You don't rely on mood, you rely on systems. You design your environment to support the behavior you want instead of constantly fighting yourself. This is intelligence applied inward. The world may still look chaotic. Markets swing. News cycles churn. Platforms rise and fall. But internally, you are anchored. You no longer consume chaos recreationally. You choose information deliberately. You protect your mind because you finally understand its earning power. A focused mind is an asset. A distracted mind is a liability. What you are building now is not just income. It is authority, inner authority first. The authority to decide without seeking approval. The authority to move at your own pace. The authority to trust your judgment. Because it has been tested under pressure. External authority follows naturally. People sense when someone is not performing, not posturing, not selling themselves emotionally. That presence is rare, and rarity attracts value. You may still be misunderstood. That doesn't bother you as much anymore. You've learned that most people interpret discipline as arrogance and patience as passivity. Let them. Their misunderstanding is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to remain aligned with the long-term vision that now feels less like a dream and more like a trajectory. This is where many paths quietly diverge forever. Some people, sensing the weight of this discipline, step back. They return to noise, to speed, to comfort. Others step forward, accepting that there is no turning back to ignorance once you've tasted clarity. You cannot unknow what you now know about yourself, about money, about time, about the cost of distraction. If you are still here, still listening, still absorbing without needing to be entertained, that says something important about you. It suggests you are capable of holding tension without release, of staying present without reward, of choosing growth over relief. These are not common traits. They are the raw materials of mastery. And mastery, once it takes root, does not announce itself. It simply continues, quietly, relentlessly. Until one day, without drama, without spectacle, you look around and realize that the life you are living would have felt impossible to the version of you that once rushed, doubted, and chased. Not because you found a secret, but because you became someone who could hold the outcome without collapsing. There comes a point where effort no longer feels heavy, not because it has become easy, but because resistance has dissolved. You are no longer dragging an undisciplined self toward a disciplined life. You are living from alignment. The work you do feels like an extension of who you are rather than a negotiation with who you wish you were. This is subtle, and because it is subtle, most people never name it. But it is the moment where identity locks in, where discipline stops being something you practice and becomes something you embody. At this stage, money stops dominating your internal dialogue, not because you have infinite amounts of it, but because you trust the process that produces it. You understand cause and effect at a level that removes desperation. When income dips, you don't spiral. You diagnose. When income rises, you don't inflate. You stabilize. This emotional consistency is rare, and rarity is what gives it power. Markets reward the calm because calm sees clearly. The world will continue trying to pull you back into urgency. There will always be crises manufactured for attention. There will always be narratives designed to hijack your emotional bandwidth. The disciplined mind does not deny reality, but it refuses to be consumed by it. You observe trends without worshiping them. You study volatility without internalizing it. You remain responsive without becoming reactive. This distinction is everything. Reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. Wealth lives in intention. Online earning systems evolve constantly, but the principles that govern them do not. Value. Creation still requires understanding a problem deeply. Distribution still rewards clarity and consistency. Trust still compounds through repeated delivery. Leverage still favors those who build assets instead of trading hours indefinitely. What changes is the surface, not the structure. When you see structure, you are no longer intimidated by change. You adapt without panic. This is where patience reveals its final layer. It is no longer about waiting for results. It is about waiting for the right moment to act. Timing becomes intuitive because your mind is no longer cluttered. You don't jump at every opportunity. You wait for alignment. When you move, it is decisive, clean, and irreversible. This is not hesitation. This is precision. You also notice that your tolerance for shallow interaction decreases, not out of superiority, but out of clarity. You are no longer interested in conversations that revolve around complaint, comparison, or fantasy. You seek depth. You seek competence. You seek people who can sit with silence and complexity. This shifts your environment naturally. Your circle becomes smaller, quieter, more potent. This alone changes your trajectory. The discipline that once felt restrictive now feels protective. It shields you from your own worst impulses. It prevents you from undoing months of progress for moments of relief. You no longer feel deprived when you say no. You feel sovereign. Each refusal strengthens your authority over yourself. And self-authority is the bedrock of any external authority you will ever hold. Money at this point becomes strangely neutral. It is no longer the measure of your worth or the proof of your intelligence. It is a tool you deploy. You respect it because you understand its function, not because you fear its absence. This neutrality allows you to handle larger amounts without distortion. It allows you to invest rationally, spend intentionally, and give without ego. Emotional neutrality is what allows scale without self-destruction. You also stop fantasizing about an endpoint. There is no finish line where discipline disappears and pleasure takes over permanently. That fantasy was always a trap. The truth is quieter and more satisfying. You enjoy life more now because you are not constantly trying to escape it. Pleasure becomes cleaner when it is not compensatory. Rest feels earned. Enjoyment feels present. You are not numb, and you are not chasing. This is where many people misunderstand you. They may think you are less ambitious because you are less frantic. They may think you have settled because you are not loud. Let them. The need to be understood is another form of dependency. You have outgrown it. Your metrics are internal now. Clarity, alignment, output, consistency, peace. The longer you operate from this place, the more obvious it becomes that most people are fighting themselves, not circumstances. They want freedom but refuse structure. They want money but avoid responsibility. They want results but resist repetition. You see this without judgment because you were once there too. Compassion replaces contempt, and compassion keeps you clean. It prevents bitterness from corroding your focus. Your work now carries a different weight. There is integrity in it. Not moral posturing, but internal congruence. What you say aligns with what you do. What you build aligns with what you believe. This coherence is felt by others even if they cannot articulate it. It creates trust effortlessly. Trust is the most leveraged asset in any economy. It lowers friction everywhere it touches. You are also more comfortable with solitude. Not isolation, but intentional aloneness. You use it to think, to plan, to reflect. Solitude sharpens you. It reveals weak assumptions. It exposes emotional residue. It clears mental noise. Most people avoid solitude because it confronts them with themselves. You have learned to use it as a forge. At this stage, the work becomes almost spiritual, though it remains grounded in reality. You see how inner order creates outer order, how emotional regulation affects financial decision-making, how patience shapes opportunity. You no longer separate money from character. You understand that wealth is simply character expressed at scale. You are no longer trying to escape scarcity. You have moved beyond it. Scarcity was a phase of learning, a pressure that shaped you. You don't resent it. You integrate it. You know how to live simply if needed. You know how to build again if required. This knowledge is freedom. It makes you resilient, and resilience is the ultimate form of security. There is a quiet gratitude that settles in. Not gratitude for comfort alone, but gratitude for the discipline that once felt unbearable, for the boredom that taught you patience, for the restraint that built self-respect, for the silence that revealed your true priorities. You would not trade this clarity for speed, ever. Now you stand at a threshold most people never reach, not because it is hidden, but because it demands too much honesty. From here, wealth is no longer something you chase. It is something you steward. You choose how to grow it, how to protect it, how to use it. And every choice reflects back to you the person you have become. The final test is subtle. It is not about whether you can earn. It is about whether you can remain disciplined when you no longer need to prove anything. Whether you can continue to choose depth over ease, integrity over impulse, long-term over immediate, even when comfort is available. This is where true mastery is revealed. And if you can feel that weight, that responsibility, not as a burden, but as a quiet readiness, then you are prepared for what comes next. Because the final phase is not about learning more. It is about executing with authority, again and again, without drama, without delay, without self-betrayal. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything you've absorbed either crystallizes into action or dissolves back into thought. There is a moment, often unannounced, where life stops negotiating with you. It doesn't arrive with music or revelation. It arrives as a quiet demand, a demand for consistency without excitement, for execution without reassurance, for discipline without witnesses. This is the moment where many intelligent, well-informed, deeply inspired people quietly fail, not because they don't know what to do, but because they hesitate when it's time to become irreversible. Up until now, growth has felt like preparation, learning, calibrating, refining identity. But preparation has an expiration date. Eventually, preparation becomes avoidance if it is not followed by sustained execution. And the world does not reward readiness. It rewards movement. Calm, deliberate, repeated movement in the same direction long enough for reality to bend. This is where your relationship with money is truly decided. Not in how much you understand it, not in how well you can explain it, but in whether you are willing to submit to the monotony required to master it. Money does not care about your potential. It responds to your behavior. Repeated behavior. Unromantic behavior. Behavior that looks ordinary from the outside and feels demanding on the inside. You already know what your next move is. That's the uncomfortable truth. There is no missing piece of information, no secret insight still withheld, no permission required. The next action has been obvious for longer than you want to admit. What has been missing
is not clarity, but consent. Consent to give up distraction. Consent to give up the fantasy of ease. Consent to give up the identity that still wants to be entertained instead of effective. This is where discipline stops being theoretical and becomes ethical. Because once you know what you should do, every delay becomes a decision. Every distraction becomes a choice. Every excuse becomes a lie you tell yourself to avoid the cost of becoming who you said you wanted to be. This is not about guilt. Guilt weakens. This is about truth. Truth sharpens. Look at your days, not your intentions, not your plans, your days. Where does your attention go when it is unguarded? Where does your time leak when no one is holding you accountable? What do you reach for when progress feels slow and discomfort rises? These answers are not accusations. They are instructions. They tell you exactly where discipline must be applied if wealth is to become inevitable rather than accidental. Financial mastery is not about domination of others. It is about dominion over the self, over impulse, over fear, over the part of you that wants reward without repetition, results without restraint, freedom without structure. That part of you will not disappear. It must be governed. Ignored, it will sabotage you. Trained, it will serve you. From this point forward, you no longer get to pretend you don't understand the exchange. Money demands focus. Freedom demands consistency. Leverage demands patience. And identity demands proof. Not once. Daily, quietly, relentlessly. You don't need to become extreme. You need to become exact. Exact with your time, exact with your commitments, exact with what you allow into your mind, exact with what you tolerate from yourself. Precision is what separates discipline from burnout. Precision is what allows you to go far without breaking. There will be days where nothing moves, days where effort feels invisible, days where doubt whispers that you are wasting your time. These days are not signs to stop. They are the toll for entry into a life where your income is no longer capped by your fear. Your focus is no longer stolen by noise, and your self-respect is no longer negotiable. The world will not slow down for you. It will not become less distracting. It will not become more patient. If anything, it will accelerate, fragment, and demand more of your attention. This means the burden is now on you to become anchored, to become selective, to become immovable. In your standards, this is where you decide whether money will forever feel like something just out of reach, or something that responds to you because you have become someone it can trust. Trust with capital is the same as trust in character. Predictable, stable, grounded, long-term. You are not late, but you are no longer early either. You are exactly at the point where execution matters more than reflection, where doing the work imperfectly matters more than thinking about it perfectly, where discipline must replace inspiration as your primary fuel. So here is the quiet command this philosophy leaves you with, the one that does not shout, does not beg, and does not repeat itself. Choose one direction. Commit to it longer than feels comfortable. Remove what weakens you. Repeat what strengthens you. Do the work when it is boring. Do the work when it is hard. Do the work when no one notices. And do not stop to ask if it is working while you are still in the middle of building the person capable of holding the result. Because the final truth is this: wealth is not waiting for you to be ready. It is waiting for you to be disciplined enough to stop negotiating with yourself and start executing with authority. And the moment you do, fully, without retreat, without drama, without excuses, money will stop feeling like a distant goal and start behaving like what it has always been meant to be in your life: a quiet consequence of mastery. This is the last threshold, and it does not announce itself as an ending. It feels like a beginning disguised as a demand, a narrowing, a stripping, a way of everything optional. By now, you should feel it clearly. There is no confusion left about what matters, only resistance. And resistance is not a mystery. It is the final defense of an identity that senses it is about to be replaced. You have learned enough, more than enough. Another video, another book, another framework will not save you from the moment that is now asking for your obedience. Not obedience to me, obedience to the version of yourself that no longer wants to live fragmented, reactive, and dependent on external permission to move. This is where philosophy becomes practice, or dies quietly as entertainment. Money, at its highest function, is alignment made visible. When your thoughts, emotions, habits, and actions point in the same direction, money moves toward you without force. When they don't, no tactic can save you. This is the truth most people spend their lives running from, because alignment requires sacrifice. It requires you to let go of identities that felt good but kept you weak. It requires you to disappoint the version of you that wanted comfort before competence. From here forward, every day is a vote. Not a dramatic one, a quiet one. You vote with what you do first thing in the morning. You vote with what you reach for when you feel friction. You vote with what you tolerate when you know better. These votes accumulate whether you acknowledge them or not. And eventually, they elect a life. If you want financial mastery, stop asking how to get there faster and start asking what you must remove to stop slowing yourself down. Remove the noise that keeps you emotionally volatile. Remove the habits that fracture your focus. Remove the self-talk that gives you an escape hatch when things get uncomfortable. Discipline is subtraction before it is addition. You do not need to become ruthless with others. You need to become uncompromising with yourself. There is a standard you already know you are capable of meeting. You have felt it in moments of clarity, moments where you acted cleanly, decisively, without drama. Those moments were not accidents. They were glimpses of who you are when you stop diluting yourself. Execution is not heroic. It is repetitive. It is quiet. It is often lonely. And that is precisely why it works. Because most people will not do it. They will look for relief. They will look for validation. They will look for reasons to delay. And while they do, you will be building something they cannot touch because they cannot tolerate the internal demands required to create it. You are not here to chase money. You are here to command yourself so completely that money has no choice, but to respond, to become so consistent that your results stop surprising you, to become so disciplined that your confidence no longer depends on mood or circumstance, to become so clear that you no longer mistake distraction for opportunity. This is where you stop romanticizing struggle and start respecting structure, where you stop talking about potential and start proving capacity, where you stop waiting to feel ready and start acting because readiness is built through action, not contemplation. You already know what to do tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Do not dramatize it. Do not negotiate with it. Do not seek permission. Wake up. Execute the highest leverage action you have identified. Protect your attention like capital. Repeat. Adjust only after honest measurement, not emotional reaction. Continue even when it feels ordinary, especially when it feels ordinary. This is how empires are built in the modern world. Not with noise, but with precision. Not with urgency, but with patience. Not with obsession over money, but with obsession over self-command. So this is the final instruction, and it is not motivational. It is operational. Decide who you are. Align your days to that decision. Remove what contradicts it. Execute without emotion. And do not stop. Not when it gets boring. Not when it gets hard. Not when no one notices. Not when you could quit and feel immediate relief. Because the cost of quitting is not failure. The cost of quitting is returning to a life where you know, deep down, that you betrayed your own authority. Stand up inside yourself. Take control of your time. Take control of your attention. Take control of your impulses. Build quietly. Move deliberately. And let the results arrive on their own schedule. This is not about becoming rich. This is about becoming undeniable. And from this moment on, whether you step into that role or retreat from it is no longer a question of knowledge. It is a question of discipline. Choose. The choice is yours, and it has always been yours. Every distraction you indulged, every shortcut you excused, every time you traded patience for immediate relief, it has all been preparation for this moment. Now, the veil is lifted. You can see the cost of delay in stark relief. You can feel the subtle pulse of potential that has been waiting for you to stop. Negotiating with yourself. The world does not wait for readiness. It moves forward. It rewards action. It punishes hesitation. And the truth is this: if you do not step fully into the version of yourself capable of mastery. You will never recover the time and energy lost to indecision. Everything you have learned about money, about online systems, about leverage, about patience and focus, it all converges into this one responsibility: to execute, to stop talking, to stop planning endlessly, to stop waiting for inspiration, to act relentlessly with precision. Because mastery is less about knowledge and more about application, less about ideas and more about the endurance to carry them forward until they solidify into results. You have built internal infrastructure over months, years, decades, without the external applause. You have learned to resist impulses, to sit in silence, to tolerate discomfort, to delay gratification, to value long-term alignment over immediate satisfaction. These are not small achievements. They are the foundations of sovereignty. And sovereignty over yourself is the true currency of wealth. Without it, every financial victory will be hollow. With it, even small gains compound into freedom that cannot be stolen, borrowed, or interrupted. Imagine the world watching you, not because you are loud, but because you are unshakable. Your decisions carry weight because they are grounded in clarity. Your work carries influence because it is consistent. Your presence carries authority because it is calm, intentional, uncorrupted by distraction or panic. That is the power that money will reflect. That is the influence that follows discipline. That is the freedom that is earned, not granted, due. You feel it. The quiet demand of your own potential? That tension between comfort and authority, between delay and action, between who you are now and who you must become. That tension is not punishment. It is a signal. It is the last measure of whether you will step fully into your authority or retreat into the safety of mediocrity, disguised as preparation. Your next action is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It will not make you feel heroic. It will feel ordinary, repetitive, and even tedious. And that is precisely why it will work. Because ordinary actions, repeated without compromise, compound into extraordinary results. This is how real wealth is built in a world addicted to immediacy and spectacle. Not through luck, not through shortcuts, not through hype, but through the accumulation of disciplined acts executed faithfully over time. Look at your impulses, identify them, name them, then govern them. You no longer get to excuse them with ignorance or rationalization. Every time you give in to distraction, you betray the authority you are capable of holding. Every time you resist, you reinforce it. Every small act of self-control is a brick. Every neglected opportunity is a gap. And your life is constructed one decision at a time, whether you are conscious of it or not. Stop hoping for external validation. Stop waiting for permission. Stop bargaining with your own attention and energy. They are finite. They are precious. They are the soil from which all financial sovereignty grows. Protect them. Guard them. Direct them. This is not optional. This is non-negotiable. Now, you must do the work that no one sees. You must endure the repetitive, boring, difficult, and sometimes lonely effort that precedes every meaningful outcome. You must train your nervous system to tolerate delay, to withstand pressure, to remain calm while systems shift around you. You must refine your focus until distraction feels unnatural. You must execute relentlessly until results arrive. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but on the schedule dictated by compound effort and aligned action. And when doubt creeps in, remember this: every person who has ever achieved mastery has faced it. Every system that produces extraordinary income and freedom is neutral. It is your capacity to act that determines whether it rewards or punishes you. Your discipline is the lever. Your consistency is the multiplier. Your presence is the foundation. This is the threshold. Step across it. Commit fully. Build quietly. Execute deliberately. And live deliberately. Stop pretending that preparation alone is enough. Stop believing that understanding without execution can carry you. Stop delaying the life you are capable of commanding. You are no longer a student. You are no longer an aspirant. You are now the architect of your own authority. And it is time to construct it without apology, without hesitation, without fear. Stand up. Align your thoughts, your energy, your habits, and your actions. Protect your attention as fiercely as your life. Execute with precision. Refuse to negotiate with your impulses. Refuse to compromise your standards. Refuse to surrender your potential to the comfort of avoidance. This is your final initiation. Your life, your wealth, your freedom. Every element of it depends on whether you step fully into the disciplined authority you have been cultivating all along. Do not delay. Do not rationalize. Do not wait. Act. 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 The world rewards action grounded in mastery, patience, and self-command. And the question you must now answer, deep within, is simple. Will you claim the authority that has been waiting for you? Or will you continue to serve the version of yourself that has been content with excuses? Choose. Act. Build. Master. Financial. Sovereignty begins the moment you stop negotiating with yourself. Everything else follows. There comes a moment when all excuses evaporate, and you realize that time has been moving without your consent. Every day spent distracted, every hour surrendered to indecision, every habit left unexamined has been a silent withdrawal from your future self. You feel it now, the weight of your own responsibility. Not theoretical, not abstract, concrete, heavy, insistent, demanding action. You can no longer hide behind plans, books, videos, or frameworks. The horizon has shortened, and the margin for hesitation has disappeared. The person who succeeds is the one who acts when everyone else hesitates. The person who builds when everyone else debates. The person who executes when everyone else excuses. Do you feel the tension? That friction inside you that refuses to settle? That is the measure of your potential. That is the pulse of the life you are capable of commanding if you are willing to stop pleasing comfort and start obeying. Discipline. It will not arrive as excitement. It will not arrive as a sign from the universe. It will arrive as internal insistence, a quiet, relentless pressure that refuses to leave until you answer. And the answer is yours alone. You have been trained by scarcity. You have been conditioned by distraction. You have been seduced by comfort. And every pattern you have endured has prepared you for this: the choice between surrender and authority, between the easy path that leads to mediocrity and the exacting path that leads to freedom. The cost is obvious now. Delay is a tax, hesitation is a penalty, compromise is defeat. Your financial life, your freedom, your inner peace, your influence, all of it rests on the decisions you make in the next hours, days, and weeks. Not months, not years, today, right now. Because the small actions repeated relentlessly compound into unstoppable trajectories. Every moment you hesitate, you forfeit. Leverage. Every distraction indulged compounds into lost opportunity. Every day spent in fear compounds into the identity of someone who will never hold authority over their own life. The world will not bend for your readiness. Opportunity is not patient. Systems do not pause for indecision. Algorithms, markets, and audiences do not wait for you to feel inspired. They respond to execution. They respond to discipline. They respond to consistency. And if you have spent years preparing for mastery, the only thing left is the willingness to act with the authority that preparation has earned you. You are capable of building. You are capable of focusing. You are capable of delivering. You are capable of creating leverage in online systems, of growing assets that compound silently, of designing a life in which income flows without constant urgency. But the universe, the market, and reality do not reward capacity alone. They reward action. Decisive, consistent, relentless action. Feel it now. The tension between what is comfortable and what is required. Between what you want now and what your future self demands. Between the identity you cling to and the identity you must inhabit. That tension is your guide. That tension is your truth. That tension is the first signal of sovereignty. If you continue to ignore it, you will live a life dictated by reaction, circumstance, and distraction. If you answer it, you will step into a reality that few ever reach. The quiet authority of a disciplined mind. The invisible power of self-command. The unstoppable leverage of aligned attention. The unshakable confidence of someone who knows that wealth is a reflection, not of luck or opportunity, but of mastery applied daily. Every habit, every decision, every action from this point forward must be measured against this truth. Are you building or are you delaying? Are you creating leverage or squandering it? Are you choosing long-term authority or short-term relief? These questions are not rhetorical. They are operational. They are the blueprint of financial and personal sovereignty. There will be pain. There will be boredom. There will be resistance. There will be doubt. The person you are now will want to escape. Old impulses will whisper that you are being extreme, unreasonable, or deprived. Let them whisper. Let them test you. Your role is not to listen. Your role is to act. Calmly. Deliberately. Without compromise. Look at your days. Your habits. Your attention. Every moment is an investment. Every decision is a reflection of who you are becoming. You can invest in distraction, fear, and comfort, or you can invest in mastery, patience, and leverage. The difference is monumental. One path compounds chaos. The other compounds freedom. The final truth you must accept is brutal. No one can do this for you. No one can rescue your attention, govern your impulses, or execute your plans. There is no teacher, no mentor, no strategy, no system, no shortcut, no promise that substitutes for the authority you must claim over yourself. You are the gatekeeper. You are the builder. You are the executor. And the universe responds, always, to those who are capable of self-command. Execution is the signal. Consistency is the multiplier. Authority is the attractor. Money, influence, and freedom are the consequences. If you want to be rich, first become sovereign. If you want to be free, first become disciplined. If you want to command your life, first command yourself. This is not a suggestion. It is not encouragement. It is a mandate from reality itself. You have been tested by comfort. You have been tested by distraction. You have been tested by fear and uncertainty. And now the final test stands before you. Will you act decisively, daily, relentlessly, Or will you retreat into excuses, hesitation, and delayed identity? There is no neutrality left. Every choice compounds. Every day spent hesitating is a vote for the person you were, not the person you are capable of becoming. Every day spent executing is a vote for sovereignty, mastery, and freedom. Your legacy is written in these small, uncelebrated decisions. Your wealth is built there. Your power begins there. Your life unfolds there. So I leave you with this, and it is the loudest truth you will ever hear, though it speaks in silence. Stop negotiating with yourself. Stop delaying. Stop fearing. Stop waiting. Claim your authority. Build your discipline. Execute your vision. Protect your attention. Refine your identity. Align your habits. Leverage your skills. Compound your effort. And do this again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, until your future self stands fully formed, unshakable, and undeniably sovereign. No excuses, no hesitation, no compromise. Act now. Master yourself, and let wealth, freedom, and power be the natural reflection of the person you have become. The question is simple. Will you step fully into this authority, or will you continue to surrender to the person you used to be? Choose, execute, command, build. This is the final threshold. Cross it.